The knife ripped through her uniform like it was nothing. Collar to waist, one brutal slice, fabric tearing, skin exposed to cold air. 3 men laughed. 1 woman stood absolutely still. "Now you'll learn your place," Webb said, reaching for her shoulder. She moved. 5.2 seconds later, all 3 were on the ground, screaming, bleeding, broken. The woman they'd cornered wasn't prey. She was Commander Elena Vargas, Navy SEAL, Tier 1 operator, 47 classified missions across 4 continents. They'd spent 4 days hunting her. She'd spent 15 years preparing for exactly this moment. Joint Special Operations Training Compound, Arizona Desert, October 2024. This is how justice arrived. Before we reveal what happened next, please subscribe to our channel and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let me tell you how she got there. The encrypted phone buzzed at 2,200 hours. Commander Elena Vargas picked it up on the first ring. She already knew who was calling. Only 3 people had this number, and 2 of them were dead. "You reviewed the files?" Master Chief Raymond Cross, 67 years old, the man who'd trained her when she was 20 and the Navy was just beginning to accept that women could meet SEAL standards. His voice carried weight that went beyond rank. It carried history. "I did." Elena kept her voice level. 15 years of operations had taught her to separate feeling from function. "Pattern matches Camp Pendleton, 2018. Same methodology, same outcome." "Tell me what you see." Elena looked down at the manila folders spread across her kitchen table. A single lamp burned in her Alexandria apartment. 3rd floor walk-up, no decorations. The kind of place where someone lived who measured life in deployment cycles rather than lease agreements. 19 formal complaints over 3 years, she said.
11 female operators transferred out, 6 careers destroyed, 3 medical discharges for stress-related conditions, all processed through the same office, all disappearing into the same black hole. Cross was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, something harder lived underneath his words. "Colonel Bradley Haynes has been running this playbook since 2006. 18 years, 4 bases. He's perfected a system."
"Peer counseling."
"That's what he calls it. What it really is, intimidation until victims withdraw. Then paperwork disappears. Predators stay protected. Careers get destroyed. And Haynes keeps moving up." Elena's jaw tightened. She'd seen this before, lived it before. The memory surfaced without permission. 2009, Naval Academy, Week 2. A senior instructor cornering her in a supply room, his hands where they shouldn't be. His voice telling her this was how things worked. She'd filed the complaint the next morning. 3 days later, she was in the commandant's office, not to discuss her complaint, but to discuss her fitness for service. "You seem to be struggling with academy life, Cadet Vargas. Perhaps you're too sensitive for military culture." The complaint disappeared. The instructor remained. And Elena learned something that would shape the next 15 years of her life. Truth didn't always matter more than convenience. But one person had believed her. "You're thinking about 2009, Cross said. Not a question.
"Yes?"
"Good. That's why I'm calling you and nobody else." His voice shifted. "Admiral Chen is requesting integration assessment at the Arizona compound. Anonymous officer, no rank visible. You'd go in as observer."
"But what I'd really be doing..."
"Becoming the target." Elena didn't hesitate.
"Tell me about the subjects."
Cross's briefing was thorough. 3 men, operating as a unit, hunting together. Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb, 27 years old, dark hair, predator's eyes. Smart, charismatic, knew how to identify vulnerable targets and isolate them. 5 years of service, 3 unit transfers, each one coinciding with informal complaints from female personnel that never made it to formal documentation. Corporal Derek Stone, 26, built like a linebacker, 250 pounds of muscle. Followed Webb's lead, enjoyed the physical aspect. 2 assault allegations that disappeared after peer counseling. Private First Class Tyler Nash, 24, wiry, sharp-eyed, the tactical mind of the group. He planned the angles, identified locations, made sure there were never any witnesses. High scores on tactical assessments. 3 female soldiers had requested transfers from units where he served. Together they're dangerous, Cross said. Not because of individual capability, because they've learned to coordinate, to hunt as a pack, to exploit a system that protects them. And Haynes enables all of it. Haynes perfected all of it. He coaches them, teaches them how to avoid paper trails, runs the peer counseling sessions that make complaints disappear. These men are his students, and they've graduated with honors. Elena stood, walked to her window. City lights flickered below. Somewhere out there, normal people were living normal lives, coming home from normal jobs, not planning operations against predators who wore the same uniform they did. Rules of engagement? Observe until they cross the line. Cross paused. But I need witnesses. When this is over, when MPS haul them away and lawyers start building cases, there can't be any ambiguity. No he said, she said. No room for institutional machinery to grind truth into acceptable fiction. You want me to let them commit? I want you to let them expose themselves completely. Then I want you to show them what a Tier 1 operator looks like. Elena turned from the window. Her reflection stared back. 35 years old, dark hair cropped military short, eyes that had seen things in Yemen and Somalia and Syria that would break most people. They called her Ghost, not because she was invisible, because by the time enemies knew she was there, it was already over. When do I ship? 48 hours. I'll be ready. Elena. Cross's voice softened, something rare. I wouldn't ask this if there was another way. I know what this operation requires. I know what you'll have to let them do before you can stop them. I know what I signed up for. Do you? Because this isn't Afghanistan. This isn't Syria. These aren't foreign hostiles. These are Americans wearing American uniforms who've learned that the system protects them. That's a different kind of enemy. Elena thought about the photograph in her desk drawer. Naval Academy, 2009. Her 20-year-old self staring back. The bruising on her wrist. The controlled fury behind her smile. That's exactly why I'm going. Cross was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried something she rarely heard from him. Respect that went beyond professional acknowledgement. You're the warrior I always knew you'd become. But warriors still bleed. Be careful. I'll be more than careful. I'll be patient. That's my student. The line went dead. Elena set down the phone and walked to her bedroom closet. Behind civilian clothes she rarely wore sat a black duffel bag. Inside, encrypted sat phone, micro recorders no larger than buttons, digital camera with telephoto lens, and wrapped in a towel, a knife. Not standard issue. This one was personal. Cross had given it to her when she graduated SEAL training in 2013. He'd carried it through Grenada in 1985, through Desert Storm in 1991, through Somalia in 1993. The blade was inscribed with 3 words: Patience defeats arrogance. Elena tested the edge. Still sharp, still ready. Like her, the USB drive arrived by courier the next morning. No return address, no note. Just 16 gigabytes of encrypted files that made Elena's blood run cold. She spent 6 hours reviewing the contents. Audio recordings of Colonel Haynes coaching predators. His voice calm, reasonable, explaining to frightened women why their complaints wouldn't go anywhere. Listen carefully, Sergeant Torres. This process protects everyone. If you continue with formal charges, there will be an investigation. Your service record will be examined, your mental health evaluations, your personal relationships. Everything becomes evidence. Everything becomes public. Is that what you want? Photographs of injuries, bruises on arms and necks. One image showed a torn uniform shirt, not cut, ripped. The woman wearing it had her face turned away, but her hands were shaking. Statements from 11 victims across 4 bases, each one following the same pattern. Complaint filed, peer counseling convened, victim pressured, complaint withdrawn, predator protected. And in one folder, dated 14 months ago, a final recording. The voice belonged to Staff Sergeant Rachel Torres, 28 years old, red hair, green eyes that had seen too much too young. I couldn't fight when it happened. I was alone in that corridor. Webb held my arms. Stone blocked the door. Nash had the knife. They didn't cut me. They cut my uniform. Slowly. Said they were teaching me about standards, about knowing my place. Her voice broke. I reported it the next day. Colonel Haynes called me in for peer counseling. Told me there wasn't enough evidence. Told me the men had exemplary records. Told me continuing would only hurt my career. He said I should consider whether military culture was really right for me. Silence on the recording. I withdrew my complaint. 6 weeks later, they transferred me out. Medical discharge, stress-related conditions. That's what the paperwork says. What it doesn't say is that I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't close my eyes without seeing that knife. More silence. I kept everything. Recordings, photos, dates, and times. Because someday, someone is going to listen. Someday, someone is going to stop them. And when that day comes, they'll need proof. The recording ended. Elena sat in silence for a long moment. Then she picked up her encrypted phone and dialed Cross. I received a package. From Torres? You knew? She reached out 3 weeks ago. Said she'd been building a case for 14 months. Said she needed someone who could actually do something with it. Why didn't you tell me? Cross's voice was quiet. Because I needed you to hear her voice yourself. I needed you to understand what we're really fighting. Elena looked at the files spread across her table. 18 years of documented predation. 40-plus victims. A system designed to protect predators and destroy anyone who spoke against them. I understand. Do you? Because this isn't just about 3 men. This isn't just about Haynes. This is about proving that the system can change, that victims can become warriors, that speaking truth matters. Elena closed her eyes, saw her 20-year-old self in the commandant's office, heard the words that had almost broken her, too sensitive from military culture. She opened her eyes. I'll make it matter. 24 hours before departure, Elena received a second call. Different number, unfamiliar voice. Commander Vargas. Who is this? My name is Samantha Cole. Private first class. I'm stationed at the Arizona compound. Elena's instincts sharpened. How did you get this number? Master Chief Cross gave it to me. He said you were coming. He said you could help. Help with what? Silence. Then, quietly. 3 months ago, Corporal Stone cornered me in the equipment bay. Said if I was smart, I'd understand how things worked. When I reported it, Colonel Haynes called me in. Told me I was damaging unit cohesion. That good Marines don't file complaints against teammates. Elena's grip tightened on the phone. Go on. I withdrew the complaint, but I didn't forget, and I didn't stop watching. Samantha's voice hardened. They're still hunting, Commander. There's a new target, Lieutenant Karen Hayes. She arrived 2 weeks ago. They've been circling her, testing. I've seen the pattern. Have they? Not yet, but it's coming. I can feel it. The way they position themselves near her. The way Webb looks at her when he thinks nobody's watching. Elena made a decision. Private Cole, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Keep watching. Document everything you can. Dates, times, locations. Don't engage. Don't confront. Don't let them know you're paying attention. And then? Then, when I arrive, we finish this together. Samantha's breath caught. You're going to stop them? I'm going to do more than stop them. I'm going to make sure they never hunt again. The night before departure, Elena sat alone in her apartment, Cross's knife in her hands. She thought about Rachel Torres, still carrying shame that was never hers to carry. She thought about Samantha Cole, watching predators circle new prey, powerless to intervene. She thought about Lieutenant Karen Hayes, who had no idea what was coming. And she thought about herself at 20, filing a complaint, being dismissed, learning that the system protected predators rather than victims. Cross had found her after that, had pulled her aside after a training exercise. I read your complaint, Cadet. I believe you. What happened to you was wrong. The system failed you. But here's what I'm going to teach you. He'd leaned close, his voice intense. You don't need the system to make you strong. You just need yourself. And I'm going to show you how to make sure you're never powerless again. 15 years of training, 47 classified missions, enemies neutralized across 4 continents, all of it building toward this moment. Elena stood, slipped the knife into her duffel bag, and began her final preparations. Tomorrow she would become prey. But prey with a plan. Prey with patience. And prey that would teach 3 predators the most important lesson of their lives. Some targets bite back. 0400 hours. Day of departure. Elena's phone buzzed one final time. Text from Cross. Remember what I taught you. Real warriors don't hunt the weak. They protect them. And when predators emerge, real warriors eliminate them. Not with rage, not with emotion, with precision, skill, and justice delivered so efficiently, it looks effortless. Elena typed back, It won't be effortless, but it will be inevitable. She shouldered her duffel bag and walked out the door. Arizona was waiting. The predators were waiting. And Commander Elena Ghost Vargas was ready to show them exactly what happened when hunters became the hunted. The flight departed at 600. By 1400 hours, she would be on the ground. By 1500 hours, she would be in formation. And within 96 hours, 3 men who thought they were invincible would learn the truth about power, about protection, and about patience. The truth that had been inscribed on her knife for 40 years. Patience defeats arrogance. Always. The Humvee dropped Elena at the admin building and drove away without a word. No welcome committee, no fanfare. Just dust and heat and the weight of what was coming. She walked inside. A staff sergeant barely looked up from his terminal. Papers. Elena handed them over. Anonymous integration officer. Numbered armband 2847. Another face in the crowd. The sergeant processed her paperwork with mechanical efficiency. Then he paused, looked up. Really looked. His eyes traced the scar tissue along her knuckles. The way she stood balanced, ready to move in any direction. Something in her posture that didn't match integration officer. You're assigned mixed unit training rotation, 0700 formation. Equipment bay for gear issue. Copy. He stamped her papers. His hand hesitated. Ma'am, word of advice. Elena waited. Watch yourself around here. Some people, they don't appreciate outsiders asking questions. I'm not here to ask questions. Then what are you here for? Elena met his eyes, held them for exactly 2 seconds. Observation. She walked out before he could respond. The formation assembled at 700, 60 personnel, Marines and sailors rotating through cross-branch training. Elena fell in with the middle of the pack. Not front where leaders stood, not back where stragglers hid. Just another body, unremarkable, forgettable. That's when she saw them. 3 men moving together, not officially paired but orbiting each other with the casual coordination of predators who'd hunted as a pack before. Marcus Webb stood at the front, dark hair buzzed to stubble, eyes that tracked movement the way a wolf tracked wounded prey. He wasn't looking at people, he was assessing them, categorizing. Target or threat, weak or strong. Derek Stone positioned himself to Webb's left, broad-shouldered, 250 pounds of muscle that moved with deliberate heaviness, not clumsy, intimidating. A man who knew his size was weapon enough. Tyler Nash hung back, wiry, sharp-eyed, the calculating one. Where Webb was direct and Stone was physical, Nash was tactical. He watched from angles, waited for openings. Their eyes swept the formation, passed over Elena, dismissed her, moved on. Perfect. Morning PT hit hard. High-intensity intervals, sprints, burpees, rope climbs. The kind of workout designed to break people down before building them back up. Elena kept pace with the middle third, not struggling, not excelling, just competent enough to avoid notice. She could have run faster, climbed higher, outperformed half the formation without breaking a sweat. But that wasn't the mission. The mission was to look vulnerable, to seem like easy prey, to make predators believe they'd found what they were hunting for. During the rope climb, she spotted Private Samantha Cole, 23 years old, blonde hair pulled back in regulation bun, Oklahoma accent that came through even when she was gasping for air. Cole struggled, fell twice, got back up both times. Elena saw Webb watching her fall, saw him smile. Not encouragement, amusement. She filed that away. Cole was still being watched, still being assessed. The hunting hadn't stopped just because she'd withdrawn her complaint. After PT came weapons drills, M4 carbine, disassembly and reassembly. Blindfolded, timed. Elena took her position at the weapons table. The M4 felt familiar in her hands. Extension of intention, tool calibrated to purpose. She'd done this thousands of times, could do it in her sleep, in combat, in pitch darkness with incoming fire. Today, she fumbled slightly with the bolt carrier group, took 45 seconds when she could have done it in 18. Adequate. Forgettable. 3 tables over, Nash finished in 22 seconds. Called out his time, made sure everyone heard. Elena glanced his way, caught his eyes on her.
Not on her weapon. On her. The way a hunter watches wounded prey. She looked away quickly, let her shoulders curve inward, subtle body language that signaled uncertainty, vulnerability. Nash's smile widened. The lunch break came at 1200 hours. Elena sat alone at a corner table in the chow hall, ate quickly, kept her head down. Universal signal, I don't want attention. Webb walked past her table, deliberately bumped it with his hip. Her tray rattled. He kept walking. Didn't look back, didn't apologize. Testing. Elena said nothing, but her hand tightened on her fork for just a moment. Let them test. Let them push. Let them believe they controlled this interaction. Document every contact. Wait for the moment when documentation would matter. Afternoon brought combatives training, MCMAP techniques, grappling, joint manipulation, the kind of close quarters combat where skill mattered more than strength. Elena was paired with Stone. He outweighed her by 80 pounds, stood 4 inches taller. When the instructor called engage, he came at her with confidence, bordering on arrogance. She let him take her down, not dramatically, just allowed his weight advantage to work. Ended up on her back with him in mount position. He applied pressure, not enough to hurt, just enough to dominate, to prove a point. Stop! Stone stood, extended a hand to help her up. Elena rose without taking it. His eyes narrowed. You okay? False concern, the kind of question that wasn't really a question. Fine. They reset, engaged again. This time, Elena defended better, made him work for it, showed enough skill that he couldn't dismiss her entirely, but not so much that he'd recognize danger. After the 3rd round, Stone was breathing hard. Elena's breathing remained steady. He noticed. Something shifted in his expression. Confusion. The first crack in certainty. That evening, Elena walked the facility perimeter, memorizing routes, identifying choke points. Everything she'd need when documentation phase transitioned to intervention phase. She found it in the Eastern Supply Wing, a corridor, 40 feet long, 8 feet wide. Storage racks on both sides blocking sightlines. One security camera at the far end, old model, fixed position, angle too wide for detail. The perfect hunting ground. Elena checked the maintenance logs posted near the door. This corridor had been flagged for camera upgrades 3 times in 18 months, each request denied by Colonel Haynes's office. Budget constraints. She understood then. This wasn't negligence. This was design. The blind spot was intentional. The hunting ground was maintained by the very man who was supposed to prevent predators from operating. Elena returned to barracks at 2100 hours, found Samantha Cole waiting near her bunk. Commander. Not here. Elena kept her voice low. Walk with me. They moved outside, found a quiet corner near the motor pool. Cole's hands were shaking. What happened? Lieutenant Hayes, the one I told you about. Webb cornered her today during equipment inspection. I saw him. He had her backed against the wall, his hand on her shoulder. She looked terrified. Did he? No. Instructor walked by. Webb stepped back, played it off like he was explaining something. But I saw her face, Commander. I know that face. I made that face 3 months ago. Elena's jaw tightened. Where's Hayes now? Barracks. She hasn't come out for dinner, hasn't talked to anyone. Has she filed anything? Cole shook her head. She won't. I tried to talk to her, told her she wasn't alone. She just stared at me, said there was no point, said Haynes would just make it disappear like he always does. She knows about Haynes? Everyone knows, Commander.
Everyone. We just don't talk about it because talking about it makes you a target. Cole's voice cracked. I want to fight. I want to do something. But every time I think about it, I remember what it felt like. Stone's hands on me, Nash blocking the door, Webb telling me I needed to learn my place. Elena put her hand on Cole's shoulder, felt the younger woman trembling. You are doing something. You're watching, you're documenting, you're surviving. And when I finish what I came here to do, your testimony is going to help ensure they never do this to anyone again. How can you be sure? Because I've been where you are. 15 years ago, I filed a complaint. I was told I was too sensitive. I was told military culture wasn't for me. I was dismissed and silenced and made to feel like the problem was mine. Cole's eyes widened. What happened? Someone believed me. One person. And that person taught me that I didn't need the system to be strong. I just needed myself. Elena's voice hardened. Now, I'm that person for you. And for Hayes. And for Rachel Torres. And for every woman who came before us and was silenced.
Torres. Staff Sergeant Torres. You know her? She was here 14 months ago, before my time, but people still talk about what happened. About how she just broke. One day she was fine. The next, she couldn't function. Medical discharge. Gone. She didn't break, Elena said quietly. She was broken. By Webb, by Stone, by Nash, and by Haynes, who told her that speaking the truth would only hurt her career. Cole's face went pale. It's all connected. All of it. 18 years of it. And it ends here. How? Elena looked across the compound. Somewhere out there, 3 predators were planning their next hunt. Somewhere, Colonel Haynes was reviewing complaints and deciding which ones would disappear. By giving them exactly what they want. I don't understand. They want a target, someone vulnerable, someone isolated, someone they can corner without witnesses. Elena turned back to Cole. I'm going to be that target. I'm going to let them commit, and then I'm going to show them what they actually caught. Cole stared at her. You're using yourself as bait. I'm using their arrogance against them. They've operated for so long without consequences that they've forgotten what consequences feel like. They've forgotten that some targets fight back. What if something goes wrong? Elena smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who'd survived 47 classified missions and learned that preparation eliminated luck from the equation. Nothing will go wrong, because I've spent 15 years preparing for exactly this moment. And patience always defeats arrogance. The next morning brought escalation. During PT, Nash positioned himself beside Elena during cool-down stretches. Close. Too close. You going to the supply wing later? Elena kept her voice neutral. Probably. Need to check some inventory. We'll be there around 1400, doing some gear maintenance. Not an invitation, an announcement. Territory being claimed. Elena nodded, said nothing more. But inside, the tactical clock started running. 72 hours since arrival. They were accelerating faster than projected. The timeline was compressing. During afternoon drills, Webb made his move. He approached Lieutenant Karen Hayes during a water break, stood too close, spoke too quietly for others to hear. Elena watched Hayes' face go pale, watched her nod quickly, watched Webb walk away with a satisfied smile. After the drill ended, Elena intercepted Hayes near the latrine. Lieutenant, a moment? Hayes flinched, actually flinched, like she expected to be cornered again.
I'm not going to hurt you, Elena said softly. I'm here to help. Nobody can help. Hayes's voice was barely a whisper. You don't understand how it works here. I understand exactly how it works. Webb approaches, tests boundaries. If you resist, Stone applies pressure. If you report, Haynes makes it disappear. And Nash documents everything, makes sure there are no witnesses. Hayes's eyes went wide. How do you know? Because they've been doing this for years. Because 19 women have filed complaints, and 19 complaints have disappeared. Because the system that's supposed to protect you is actually designed to protect them. Tears spilled down Hayes's cheeks. What am I supposed to do? I've worked my whole life for this. If I report and it goes nowhere, my career is over. If I don't report and this continues, you're not alone. Elena's voice hardened with certainty. There are others. Cole, Torres, women across 4 bases who were told the same thing you're being told right now. That there's no point. That the system will protect them. That silence is safer than speaking. Isn't it? No. Silence is what they count on. Silence is what keeps them hunting. But silence ends when someone is strong enough to break it. Elena stepped closer. I need you to trust me for 72 more hours. Can you do that? Trust you to do what? To finish what they started. To make sure they never hunt again. And to prove that speaking truth matters. Hayes stared at her for a long moment. Something shifted in her eyes. Fear becoming something else. Hope, maybe. Or just desperate exhaustion finally finding a place to rest. 72 hours? Maybe less. They're accelerating. They think they've found what they're looking for. What did they find? Elena smiled that cold smile again. A ghost. That night, Elena made contact with Cross. Encrypted line, short conversation. They're moving faster than projected. Webb cornered Hayes today. Nash is doing reconnaissance. They'll commit within 48 hours. Are you positioned? Supply wing corridor. Tomorrow afternoon. I'll engineer isolation. Make myself available in exactly the wrong place at exactly the wrong time. Witnesses? Cole will be nearby. Close enough to see.
Far enough to stay safe. And I've arranged for Admiral Chen's aide to do a surprise inspection of the motor pool at 1400 hours. Response time will be under 60 seconds.
You've thought of everything.
I've had 15 years to think about it. Cross was quiet for a moment. Then, Elena, once you move, there's no going back. Whatever happens in that corridor becomes official record. Whatever you do to those men becomes documented fact.
I understand.
Do you? Because I know what you're planning. I know what you'll have to let them do before you can respond. I know the line you'll have to let them cross. Elena touched the knife in her cargo pocket, felt the inscription under her fingers. Patience defeats arrogance.
They've crossed every line except the final one. Tomorrow they will. And when they do, I'll document it. Then I'll end it. Then I'll make sure Colonel Haynes answers for 18 years of enabling predators.
Be certain, Elena. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. The line went dead. Elena lay back on her bunk, stared at the ceiling, ran through scenarios, calculated variables, prepared for every contingency. Tomorrow, 3 men would corner her in a corridor with no cameras. Tomorrow, they would cut her uniform and believe they were in control. Tomorrow, they would learn that some prey carried fangs. And in exactly 5.2 seconds, 18 years of institutional protection would collapse into accountability. Elena closed her eyes. Sleep came easily, because predators, when properly confronted, weren't actually dangerous. They were just cowards who'd forgotten what happened when patience ran out. Tomorrow, they would remember. The morning came like judgment, heat pressing down before sunrise, air thick enough to taste. Elena woke at 0500, earlier than necessary, but she needed time to center herself, to run through scenarios one final time. She dressed slowly, standard fatigue,
Boots laced tight, hair secured. Everything regulation. Everything squared away. Because when this was over, when MPs arrived and reports were filed, there couldn't be any detail that suggested anything except professional conduct, right up until the moment self-defense became necessary. The micro recorder went into her left cargo pocket. Military-grade encryption, 8 hours of battery. It had been running since day one. Every word captured, every contact documented. Every boundary crossed now existed as evidence that couldn't be denied or dismissed. Elena touched the knife in her right pocket. Cross's blade. 40 years of history. She wouldn't need it for combat, but she needed it for what it represented. Patience defeats arrogance. Today, patience ended. Today, arrogance paid its bill. Morning formation assembled at 0530, earlier than standard. Surprise PT test, the kind designed to catch people unprepared. Elena fell in with the others, noted immediately that Webb, Stone, and Nash had positioned themselves directly behind her, close enough to feel their presence, close enough that every movement registered. The circle was tightening. The test began. 3-mile run, full combat load, 45 pounds of gear pressing down, the kind of run that separated committed from casual. Elena kept pace with the middle, not leading, not struggling, conserving energy the way Cross had taught her during their first desert training. Heat is a weapon, he'd said. Use it against opponents who haven't learned to respect it. Let them burn themselves out while you stay controlled. Behind her, Stone's breathing grew heavy, not struggling, but working harder than necessary, pushing to maintain position near her rather than running his own race. Tactical error, letting target selection override efficiency. They were fully committed now. The run ended. Elena finished middle third. Adequate, unmemorable. She took water, rehydrated properly. Watched as Webb approached Private Samantha Cole near the finish line. Struggling today, Private? False concern, the kind designed to humiliate while sounding helpful. Cole's face flushed. No, Sergeant, just maintaining standards. Webb stepped closer, invaded her space. Standards keep people alive. When you can't maintain them, you put everyone at risk. Cole said nothing, but her hands clenched at her sides. Elena filed that away. Webb was still hunting Cole, still testing. The withdrawn complaint hadn't ended his interest. It had confirmed his power. After PT came weapons qualification. M4 carbine, moving targets, stress fire exercises. Elena took her position on the line, loaded her magazine. 28 rounds. The targets appeared, pop-up silhouettes at varying distances. She engaged, controlled pairs, center mass, rhythm matching heartbeat. She scored 38 out of 50. Qualified expert by standards, but not exceptional. Not memorable. Several shooters scored higher, including Nash, who made sure everyone heard his 47. But what Nash didn't know was that Elena had deliberately missed 12 shots, grouped them in a pattern that looked like wind drift and stress rather than intentional placement. Exceptional shooting would have raised questions, would have made her remarkable, would have broken her cover. And she needed them to keep underestimating her for 6 more hours. The morning dragged. Training exercises, drills, the routine that had become familiar over 4 days. But underneath the routine, tension building, the sense of something imminent. At 1100 hours, Elena found a moment alone with Cole.
It happens today.
Cole's face went pale. How do you know?
Nash asked if I'd be in the supply wing at 1400. Webb's been watching me all morning. Stone keeps positioning himself near me during drills.
Elena's voice stayed level.
They've made their decision.
This afternoon, they commit. What do you need me to do? Be near the supply wing at 1355, not inside, near. Close enough to hear if something goes wrong, far enough to stay safe. And if something does go wrong? Run. Find Admiral Chen's aide. He'll be doing motor pool inspection. Tell him there's an emergency in the eastern corridor. Cole swallowed hard.
You're really going through with this?
I've been going through with this for 15 years. Today is just the day it finally ends.
Aren't you scared?
Elena thought about the question, thought about fear and what it meant, and whether she still felt it after 47 missions and countless encounters with death. No, I'm not scared. I'm ready. Cole nodded slowly.
Then I'm ready too.
At 1200 hours, Elena sat alone in the chow hall. Same corner table, same posture. Head down. Isolated. Webb walked past. This time he stopped. Mind if I sit? Elena looked up, kept her expression neutral.
Free country.
Webb sat across from her. His eyes moved over her face, assessing, deciding. You've been here 4 days, haven't talked to anyone, haven't made any friends. That's unusual for an integration officer.
I'm here to observe, not socialize.
Observe what?
How different branches work together. Identify friction points, make recommendations.
Webb smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. And what have you observed? Elena met his gaze, held it.
That some people here take their jobs very seriously, and some people are more interested in other things.
The smile flickered, just for a moment. Then it was back, wider than before. You're perceptive. I like that. He leaned forward. You know, there's a lot that happens here that doesn't make it into official reports. Things that work better when they stay unofficial.
Such as?
Training methods, leadership techniques, ways of maintaining standards that aren't exactly in the manual. His voice dropped. Ways of making sure everyone knows their place. Elena's heart rate stayed steady, but inside, something cold and certain settled into position. He was telling her, openly, confident that she was too weak to do anything about it.
Sounds interesting,
she said carefully. It is. Maybe we could discuss it later. There's a supply wing on the east side. Quiet. Good place for conversations that need privacy.
What time?
1400 hours. I'll be doing some gear maintenance with a couple of colleagues. You could observe. His smile sharpened. Learn how things really work around here.
I'll think about it.
Webb stood. Don't think too long. Opportunities like this don't come often. He walked away. Elena watched him go, watched him rejoin Stone and Nash at their table, watched them lean in, discuss, plan. They thought they were hunters. They thought she was prey. In 2 hours, they would learn the truth. At 1330 hours, Elena walked to the supply wing. 30 minutes early. Deliberate choice. Let them find her. Let them think this was opportunity rather than trap. She moved through the main storage area, past rows of equipment, combat packs, body armor, the implements of military function arranged in precise order. She moved toward the eastern corridor, the narrow passage between equipment racks, the blind spot, the hunting ground, the place where Rachel Torres had been cornered 14 months ago, the place where this pattern would finally end. Elena positioned herself halfway down the corridor, examining a rack of training equipment, back partially turned, vulnerable, available, perfect prey. She heard them before she saw them. Boots on concrete. 3 sets, moving with coordinated purpose, not rushing, just converging. Predators who'd done this before, who knew the timing, who understood how to isolate targets. They entered the corridor, spread out, blocked exits. Webb in front, Stone to the left, Nash behind. Triangle formation. Tactical positioning that would have been impressive if it wasn't being used for assault. Didn't expect to see you here so early. Webb's voice carried false surprise. Thought you'd be at afternoon drills. Inventory check. Elena kept her voice neutral, didn't turn fully, didn't acknowledge the positioning. We can help with that. Stone moved closer, his shadow falling over her. Teamwork, right? Integration. I'm fine. Almost done. Don't think you are. Nash's voice came from behind. Close. Too close. Think you need some correction. Form adjustment. You've been doing things wrong out there. His hand reached for her shoulder. Not gentle. Claiming ownership. Elena stepped away. Smooth motion. Not panicked. Just creating distance. I don't need adjustment. Yeah. Webb moved closer, the triangle tightening. You do. See, we've been watching you for 4 days. You're sloppy. Weak. That's dangerous. Puts everyone at risk. My standards are fine. No. Stone invaded her space completely now, his breath hot on her face. They're not, and we're going to show you why. His hand shot out, grabbed her uniform shirt at the collar. Not violent yet, but possessive, controlling. The physical line crossed. Let go. Elena's voice remained calm, but something shifted in her tone. Warning delivered. Stone smiled. Or what? Nash produced a knife. Tactical training blade, rubberized, non-lethal, but the message was clear. Here's what's going to happen. Webb's voice carried absolute certainty, the confidence of a predator who'd never been stopped. We're going to teach you about standards, about what happens when you don't meet them, about knowing your place. Nash stepped closer, the knife in his hand. Not threatening yet, just showing. Psychological pressure before physical assault. Your uniform's too tight. His voice was almost gentle. Doesn't meet regulation. Let's fix that. The blade pressed against her collar. Cool, even through the fabric. Step back. Elena's voice stayed level. Final warning. This is your last chance. Or what? Webb mocked. You'll report us? Good luck with that. No witnesses, no cameras, just your word against ours. And we're good soldiers. You're just another integration officer who couldn't handle pressure. The knife bit into fabric, a clean slice from collar downward, fabric parting, exposing. They were smiling, all 3, confident, certain. Predators who'd learned that isolation plus intimidation plus institutional protection equaled immunity. The blade moved for a second cut. That's when Elena moved. and everything changed. 5.2 seconds. That's all it took. Nash's knife hit concrete before he understood what happened. Nerve strike to his wrist. The pressure point that made fingers release involuntarily. Blade clattering as his arm went numb. Palm strike to his solar plexus. Not lethal force, just enough to empty his lungs, buckle his knees. Hip throw. His own momentum used against him. He hit ground before his brain registered he was falling. 1.4 seconds. First subject neutralized. Stone charged. 250 pounds of muscle. Confidence in his size advantage. Elena sidestepped. Redirected momentum. Arm around his neck. Modified rear control hold. His shoulder hyperextended with an audible pop. Ligament stress that would remind him of this moment for months. His scream echoed through the corridor. 3.1 seconds. Second subject neutralized. Webb went for the knife. Smart. Too late. Elena's boot pinned his hand. Sweep. Mount. Control. Her knee on his chest. His arm locked in a position that would break if he moved wrong. 5.2 seconds. All three subjects secured. Elena stood. Smooth motion. Breathing steady. Not even elevated. Done? She asked. Webb stared up at her. Eyes wide. Mouth open. Comprehension finally dawning. What the hell are you? Elena reached into her cargo pocket, produced the black ID wallet, extended it without a word. Webb's face went white as he read, Commander Elena Vargas, Naval Special Warfare Command, SEAL Team 6, Tier 1 clearance, SOCOM Investigative Authority. The corridor went absolutely silent. Nash gasped on the ground. Stone whimpered, cradling his shoulder. Webb just stared at the ceiling like he'd seen God and learned God wasn't on his side. Footsteps echoed, multiple sets moving fast, MPS responding to the alert Elena had triggered 30 seconds before engaging. They rounded the corner, saw 3 men on the ground, saw 1 woman standing in torn fatigues, breathing steady, expression neutral. Master Sergeant Davis led the MPs. His hand moved toward his sidearm, reflex, then stopped. Because something in the scene didn't match expectations. The woman wasn't panicking, wasn't scared, wasn't victim. She was calm, collected, standing like someone who'd just completed a training exercise. "Ma'am?" Davis said uncertainly. Ina extended her credentials. Davis read them aloud. His face went through confusion, recognition, something approaching awe. Commander Vargas, Tier 1 clearance, SOCOM Investigative Authority. Behind him, Admiral Chen arrived, took in the scene. His face hardened with understanding. "Sergeant, secure these 3. Medical isolation, no communication. I want statements from everyone who had contact with them." "Yes, sir." Chen turned to Elena. "Commander, are you injured?" "No, sir." "Do you wish to file charges?" Elena looked down at Webb, at Stone, at Nash. 3 predators learning that institutional protection wasn't absolute, that 18 years of impunity could end in 5.2 seconds. "I don't file charges, Admiral. I make recommendations." Her voice carried ice. "And I recommend you call Master Chief Raymond Cross at the Pentagon immediately. Because what happened here isn't an isolated incident. It's the visible part of systematic failure spanning 18 years. And Colonel Bradley Haynes needs to answer for every single day of it." Chen's jaw tightened. "Haynes?" "Sir, I have documented evidence that Colonel Haynes has been systematically protecting predators and destroying victims' careers since 2006. Audio recordings, victim statements, a pattern across 4 bases and 40-plus victims." She paused.
This ends today. All of it.
As MPs moved to secure the three men, Webb looked up at Elena one final time. His face carried questions he couldn't articulate. How? Why? What just happened? Elena met his eyes, held them. When she spoke, her voice carried something beyond calm. It carried certainty, authority. The weight of 15 years proving herself, and 43 years of institutional wisdom passed down from a man who'd taught her that real warriors protected rather than prayed.
You made 3 mistakes, she said quietly. First, you assumed silence meant weakness. Second, you assumed isolation meant vulnerability.
Third, you assumed cutting a woman's uniform meant you were in control. She stepped back.
You were wrong on all 3 counts. And now you'll have the rest of your very short military careers to think about why.
Elena turned, walked toward the exit, left them on the ground with MPs and comprehension, and the slow realization that everything they believed about power and protection and immunity had been illusion. Behind her, the corridor emptied, MPs hauling away 3 careers that had just ended, Admiral Chen already on his phone with Cross, evidence being documented, patterns being revealed. The machinery of institutional accountability was finally engaging. Because one operator had been patient enough to let predators commit before showing them exactly what Tier 1 meant. Elena walked into Arizona heat, torn shirt, steady breathing. Mission Phase 1 complete. Now came Phase 2, the investigation, the documentation, the systematic reform that would ensure Rachel Torres's story never repeated. And somewhere in a Pentagon office, Master Chief Raymond Cross was about to learn that his student had kept her promise. Patience had defeated arrogance, just like he always said it would. The debrief room felt like a confession booth. Elena sat across from Admiral Chen while Cross stood against the wall, having arrived 90 minutes after the incident. His face showed nothing, but his eyes carried pride he couldn't hide. Start from the beginning, Chen said. Elena walked him through everything. 4 days of escalating harassment, verbal to physical, testing to touching. The pattern documented in her encrypted recorder. She played the audio. Webb's voice filled the room. We're going to teach you about standards, about knowing your place. Then Nash. Your uniform's too tight. Let's fix that. Then the sound of fabric tearing. Then 5.2 seconds of controlled violence. Then silence. Chen's face had gone pale by the time the recording ended. You documented all of this? Every contact, every incident, time-stamped and encrypted. Elena produced the USB drive. But that's not the worst of it. This arrived from Staff Sergeant Rachel Torres. 14 months of evidence. Audio recordings of Colonel Haynes coaching predators. Photos, statements, names of victims across 4 bases. She plugged the drive into Chen's laptop, pulled up one of the audio files. Haynes's voice filled the room. Calm, reasonable, terrifying. Listen carefully, Sergeant Torres. Peer counseling protects everyone. If you continue with formal charges, there will be an investigation. Your service record examined. Your mental health evaluations. Everything becomes public. Is that what you want? Silence on the recording. I recommend you withdraw your complaint. Consider whether military culture is really right for you. Some women just aren't suited for this environment. The recording ended. Chen sat back. His hands were trembling slightly. 18 years, Elena said. 4 bases. 40+ victims.
Haynes has been running this playbook since 2006. Webb, Stone, and Nash are just his latest students.
Cross spoke for the first time. I investigated Haynes in 2006. Recommended discharge. Command overruled me. Political connections. Insufficient evidence.
And he's been operating ever since, Elena continued. Building the same system at every base. Training predators how to avoid accountability. Using peer counseling as a weapon instead of resolution.
Chen looked at Cross.
You knew about this?
I suspected, but suspicion isn't evidence. Commander Vargas provided the evidence. Chen turned back to Elena.
What do you need? Access to every complaint filed in the last 3 years. Every transfer request from female personnel. Every medical discharge coded for stress. And I need to interview the victims. On record, starting with Torres and Cole. And Haynes?
Elena's voice went cold. Haynes answers for everything. Every complaint he dismissed, every career he destroyed, every predator he protected. Chen nodded slowly.
I'll make the calls. General Sarah Hawkins handles SOCOM oversight for special warfare programs. She'll want to lead this personally.
Good, Cross said. Because Sarah was my student too. Desert Storm, 1991. She remembers what it was like being a woman in military when predators operated with impunity. 1 hour later, Private Samantha Cole walked into the conference room. 23 years old, hands shaking, eyes carrying something between fear and desperate hope.
Ma'am, people are saying...
She stopped, started again.
Did you really? Are you really a SEAL? I am. Elena gestured to a chair. Sit down, Private. We have work to do. Cole sat. Her hands wouldn't stop moving. I saw them take Webb away. Stone was screaming about his shoulder.
Nash couldn't even stand up. Her voice cracked.
I've never seen anything like it.
What you saw was accountability, something they've avoided for years. Elena leaned forward. Now I need your help to make sure it sticks.
My help?
Your testimony, everything that happened 3 months ago, everything Stone did, everything Haynes said during peer counseling. Cole's face went pale.
I withdrew my complaint. I said I was mistaken.
You were pressured into saying that. There's a difference. Elena's voice softened.
I know what it feels like. 15 years ago, I filed a complaint. I was told I was too sensitive, told military culture wasn't for me. I was dismissed and silenced and made to feel like the problem was mine.
What happened?
Someone believed me. One person. And that person taught me that I didn't need the system to be strong.
Elena paused.
Now I'm that person for you. Your testimony isn't isolated complaint that can be dismissed. It's part of a pattern.
Part of evidence that proves 18 years of systematic failure. Tears spilled down Cole's cheeks.
What if they don't believe me?
They will, because this time we have more than your word. We have recordings, documentation, multiple victims, and we have 3 men sitting in custody who just learned that 5.2 seconds can end careers. Cole wiped her eyes, took a breath. Something shifted in her posture.
Whatever you need, I'll testify. I want to make sure this never happens to anyone else.
Rachel Torres appeared on screen 30 minutes later. Video call, secure connection. 28 years old, red hair, green eyes that had seen too much too young. But something had changed since Elena first heard her voice on that recording. She looked stronger.
Commander Vargas, I heard what you did.
I heard what you did. 14 months of documentation, evidence that's going to dismantle an entire system. Torres's eyes filled.
I thought I was weak.
Thought I couldn't handle military culture. I carried that shame for 14 months.
You weren't weak. You were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, betrayed by the system that should have protected you.
Elena leaned toward the camera.
But your courage, keeping evidence when everyone told you to forget, that's what breaks the system.
Is it really over? Are they really going to pay?
Webb, Stone, and Nash are in custody. Haynes is under investigation. And tomorrow, General Sarah Hawkins arrives to lead formal SOCOM inquiry.
Elena paused.
But I need your testimony. On record. Everything that happened. Everything Haynes said.
Torres nodded slowly, wiped her eyes.
Whatever you need. I'm ready.
Cross leaned into frame. Sergeant Torres, I'm Master Chief Raymond Cross. I investigated Haynes in 2006. I recommended discharge. Command overruled me. Torres stared at him.
You tried to stop him? Before any of this happened?
I tried. I failed.
And I've carried that guilt for 18 years.
His voice dropped.
If I had succeeded then, you would never have suffered.
I can't change that, but I can promise you that this time he doesn't get protected. This time, justice happens. Torres was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried new strength.
Then let's make sure it happens right.
General Sarah Hawkins arrived 30 hours later. 3 stars. Face that had seen Desert Storm and Afghanistan, and 28 years of fighting institutional battles that didn't involve bullets. She reviewed everything in silence, 4 hours straight. When she finally spoke, her voice could have cut steel.
This is worse than we projected.
Yes, ma'am. Elena stood at attention.
Haynes has been operating since 2006. Documentation suggests minimum 40 victims. Actual number probably double that. Most never reported. Those who did were destroyed.
Hawkins looked at Cross.
You were right to pursue this, Colonel.
And you were right about Commander Vargas. She's exactly what the situation required, ma'am. Hawkins turned back to Elena. Timeline for charges?
Formal charges within 48 hours. Arrest and confinement within 72. Court-martial proceedings begin within 30 days.
Elena paused.
But, ma'am, I have a recommendation.
Speak.
The victims. Torres, Cole, Hayes. The others across 4 bases. They need more than justice. They need restoration. Full support, career assistance. Those who were medically discharged need records reviewed, honorable status restored.
Elena's voice hardened.
We don't just punish perpetrators. We heal the wounded. That's complete justice.
Hawkins studied her for a long moment. Something like approval flickered across her face. Agreed. Make it happen. The court-martial convened 28 days later. Military courtroom, packed gallery. Every seat filled with personnel who'd heard whispers, seen patterns, but never quite understood the scope. Until now. The prosecution laid it bare. Security footage showing 5.2 seconds of controlled violence. Audio recordings from Elena's micro-recorder. The USB drive from Torres with 18 years of documentation. And testimony. God, the testimony. 7 victims took the stand, one by one. Torres, Cole, Hayes. 4 others from previous bases, each telling the same story in different words. Cornered, assaulted, dismissed, destroyed, and enabled, always enabled, by Colonel Bradley Haynes and his peer counseling system. The defense tried every angle: entrapment, maintaining standards, misunderstanding military culture. When Elena took the stand, she dismantled every argument with surgical precision. Commander Vargas, the defense attorney said, you're a highly trained SEAL operator. These were ordinary soldiers. Isn't that an unfair advantage? Elena looked at the jury,
met each pair of eyes in turn. Ordinary soldiers don't rip women's uniforms with knives. Predators do. My training is why I'm testifying instead of being another dismissed complaint. She paused. If protecting myself makes this unfair, then yes, it's unfair to every woman before me who couldn't defend herself. That's exactly why systematic reform is necessary. The courtroom went silent. The defense attorney had nothing else to ask. The verdicts came 3 days later. Marcus Webb, guilty on all counts. Dishonorable discharge, 8 years federal prison. Derek Stone, guilty on all counts. Dishonorable discharge, 10 years federal prison. Tyler Nash, guilty on all counts. Dishonorable discharge, 6 years federal prison. And then, the moment everyone had been waiting for. Colonel Bradley Haynes, guilty on all counts. Conspiracy, obstruction of justice, dereliction of duty, systematic abuse of authority, dishonorable discharge, 18 years federal prison. Total forfeiture of pension and benefits. Haynes sat motionless as the verdict was read. His face showed nothing at first. Then, slowly, comprehension crept in. The slow realization that 18 years of protection had been illusion. That institutional immunity eventually failed. That accountability always arrived. It just needed the right warrior to deliver it. After the verdict, Elena found Torres waiting outside the courtroom. Commander? Torres's voice was steady now, stronger than Elena had ever heard it. Sergeant? They reinstated me this morning. Full rank, honorable status, back pay. Torres paused. But that's not why I'm here. Why are you here? To say thank you. And to tell you something. Torres took a breath. When I kept that evidence for 14 months, I didn't know if anyone would ever listen. I didn't know if it would ever matter. Some days I wanted to delete everything, just forget, move on. Why didn't you? Because somewhere deep down, I believed that someday someone would come who could actually do something with it. Torres's eyes glistened. You were that someone. You turned my shame into evidence, my silence into testimony, my pain into justice. Elena felt something shift in her chest, something she hadn't let herself feel in 15 years of operations. You did that, she said quietly. I just finished what you started. Torres shook her head. You showed me what I started was worth finishing. That's a different thing. They stood in silence for a moment. Two warriors who'd walked different paths to the same destination. What happens now? Torres asked. Now we make sure it never happens again. New protocols, better systems, training that actually works. Elena paused. And I have a question for you. Ask. General Hawkins is implementing new harassment prevention programs across every base. She needs instructors, people who understand what victims go through, people who can teach others to recognize the signs and intervene before it's too late. Elena met Torres's eyes. Would you be interested? Torres stared at her. You want me to teach? After everything? I want you to turn your experience into protection for others, the same way I did, the same way Cross taught me to do. Elena smiled. That's how legacy works. We don't just survive. We ensure others don't have to go through what we went through. Torres was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried certainty that hadn't been there before. When do I start?
3 weeks later, Elena stood in dress blues at the Naval Yard in San Diego. Cross's retirement ceremony. 180 personnel assembled. Admiral Chen presiding. General Hawkins present. The speeches were standard at first: honorable service, dedication, sacrifice. Then Cross took the podium and went a different direction entirely.
43 years, he said. Grenada to Afghanistan. I've trained thousands, led hundreds, executed more missions than I can count. He paused, looked directly at Elena. People ask what I'm most proud of. The missions, the battles, the decorations. His voice dropped. No, I'm most proud that when I failed in 2006, the warrior I trained succeeded in 2024. Commander Vargas proved that one operator with patience and precision can dismantle a system that protected predators for 18 years. He straightened. That's not my redemption. That's her victory. And I'm honored to have played even a small part in making her the warrior she became. After the ceremony, in a private moment, Cross pressed his knife into Elena's hands. The Grenada blade. 40 years of history in steel and leather. This knife saved me 6 times, he said quietly. Taught me everything about waiting for the exact right moment. About patience. About precision. Elena felt the weight of it, the inscription under her fingers. Patience defeats arrogance. It's yours now, Cross continued. Not as a weapon. You don't need it. As reminder. Real warriors protect those who can't protect themselves, and when you're strong enough, you teach others to do the same. Elena looked at the blade, then at Cross. The man who'd believed her when no one else would, who'd trained her when the system wanted her gone, who'd given her 15 years to become what she was. I won't let you down. Cross smiled. The rare smile that only came when something mattered more than words could express. You never have. And you never will. 6 months passed like water finding its level. Elena stood at Coronado Naval Base, SEAL training facility, watching 30 female candidates run the obstacle course. Her new assignment. Lead instructor for women entering special warfare programs. Cross's methods lived in every lesson she taught. Patience, precision, control, and in the front row of every formation, struggling but never quitting, was Private Samantha Cole. Move it, Cole! You're not done until I say you're done! Cole grabbed the rope, pulled herself up, arms shaking, face twisted with effort. She'd failed this climb twice already today. She wasn't going to fail again. Hand over hand, feet pushing against the rope, every muscle screaming. She reached the top, slapped the beam, let out a breath that was half sob, half triumph. Elena watched from below, said nothing, but something flickered across her face that looked like recognition. That same determination, that same refusal to break. After training ended, Elena pulled Cole aside. You almost quit on that third climb. Cole's jaw tightened. Almost isn't the same as did. No, it's not. Elena paused. 6 months ago, you were filing complaints that got dismissed, watching predators operate with impunity, thinking there was no point in fighting. I remember. What changed? Cole looked at her. Really looked. You showed me that fighting was possible, that speaking truth mattered, that being scared didn't mean being weak. And now? Now I'm going to be a SEAL, first female operator from Oklahoma. And when I'm done training, I'm going to make sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else. Elena felt it again, that shift in her chest, that sense of something completing. This was legacy, not what you accomplished, what you made possible for those who came after. Get some rest, Cole. Tomorrow we run it again. Yes, ma'am. Cole walked away, shoulders straight, head high. Elena watched her go, then pulled out her phone. Message from Torres. First training session complete. 12 instructors certified. 8 bases implementing new protocols. Your methods are spreading. Elena typed back. They're not my methods. They're Cross's. I'm just passing them forward.
Torres responded immediately.
That's what he said you'd say. He also said to tell you he's proud, and that patience still defeats arrogance.
Elena smiled, put the phone away. Another message arrived before she could move, this one from General Hawkins. Fort Bragg situation resolved, 3 officers discharged, 2 victims reinstated. Your protocol's working. Cross sends regards. Says you're doing exactly what he knew you would. Elena read it twice. Let the words sink in. Fort Bragg, Pendleton, Quantico. 8 bases now using the prevention programs she'd helped design. 16 victims reinstated across the service. 4 more predators facing court-martial. The system was changing. Slowly, imperfectly, but changing. That evening, Elena stood alone on the beach near Coronado, sun setting over the Pacific, Cross's knife in her hand. She thought about the photograph in her desk drawer. The 20-year-old who'd filed a complaint and been dismissed. The girl who'd been told she was too sensitive for military culture. That girl had 2 choices, quit or endure. She chose endure. But she shouldn't have had to make that choice. Nobody should. Her phone buzzed. Video call incoming. Cross. She answered. His face appeared on screen. 67 years old, retired 3 weeks. But his eyes were still sharp, still carrying that intensity that had shaped her into what she was. You're at the beach, he said. How do you know? Because I taught you. And I know what you do when you're processing something. Elena laughed softly. What am I processing? Legacy. Purpose. What comes next? Cross paused. The same things I processed when I retired. The same things every warrior processes when they realize the mission has changed. And what did you decide? That the mission never really changes. It just finds new forms. I trained you. You trained Cole. Cole will train others. That's how we win. Not through individual battles, through generations of warriors who carry the same values forward. Elena looked at the knife in her hand, felt the inscription under her fingers. Patience defeats arrogance. Always, Cross said. And the patience we're talking about now isn't about waiting for the right moment to strike. It's about building something that lasts beyond us. Something that ensures the next woman who files a complaint gets believed instead of dismissed. Is that what the knife really means? Cross smiled, the rare smile. The knife means what you need it to mean. For me, it meant surviving long enough to train warriors who could change things I couldn't change. For you, it means something different. What? You tell me. Elena was quiet for a long moment. The sunset painted the sky in oranges and reds. The waves kept their eternal rhythm. It means that being patient isn't the same as being passive. It means that justice sometimes takes 15 years to arrive. It means that the system can change if someone is brave enough to force it. Cross nodded. Now you understand. I've always understood. No, you've always believed. Understanding comes later. Understanding comes when you see Cole climbing that rope, and realize you're looking at yourself 15 years ago. When you see Torres teaching other instructors and realize your pain became her protection. When you see the system changing and realize your patience made it possible. Elena felt her eyes sting. Didn't fight it. I wish it hadn't taken so long. It took exactly as long as it needed to take. Because if you'd confronted those men on day one, nothing would have changed. You needed 4 days to build the evidence, 18 years for Haynes to build a pattern that couldn't be denied, and 15 years of training to become someone who could dismantle it all in 5.2 seconds. That's a lot of patience. That's why it works. Because the people who prey on others, they're not patient. They want immediate gratification, immediate power. They don't think about consequences because they've never faced any. Cross's voice hardened. But warriors like you, like Cole, like Torres, you think in decades. You build in generations. And that's why you always win in the end. The call ended a few minutes later. Elena stood on the beach as darkness fell, stars emerging one by one. She thought about Webb, Stone, and Nash in their cells, thinking about what they'd done, what they'd lost, what 5.2 seconds had cost them. She thought about Haynes, 18 years of protecting predators, 18 years of destroying careers, all of it ending in a courtroom where 7 women testified, and a jury decided that truth mattered more than convenience. She thought about Torres teaching other instructors, Cole climbing ropes, Hayes completing her deployment with her head held high. And she thought about herself at 20, filing that complaint, being dismissed, learning that the system protected predators, then meeting Cross, learning that she didn't need the system to be strong. 15 years later, she'd changed the system itself. That was the real victory, not the fight in the corridor, not the court-martial, not the convictions. The real victory was ensuring that the next woman who spoke up would be heard. Her phone buzzed again. Text from Cole. "Ma'am, I need to tell you something." Elena typed back, "What is it?" "I got my Phase 1 results today. I passed. Top 10%. A pause, then, "They're saying I might be the first female SEAL from Oklahoma. Maybe one of the first from anywhere." Elena smiled. "You earned it." "I didn't earn anything. You gave me the chance to prove myself. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You showed me what strength really looks like." "Strength isn't what I showed you, Cole. Courage is what you already had." "I just gave you permission to use it." Another pause, then, "Ma'am, can I ask you something personal?" "Ask." "When you were 20 and you filed that complaint and everyone told you to quit, what kept you going? What made you stay?" Elena thought about the question, thought about all the answers she could give. The anger, the determination, the refusal to let them win. But the real answer was simpler. Someone believed me. One person. And that one person was enough to prove that not everyone was against me. That the system failed, but people could still be good. She paused. That's what I tried to be for you. That one person who believes. Cole was quiet for a long moment. When she responded, her words carried weight that went beyond text on a screen. "Then I'll be that person for someone else." That's how it works, right? We keep passing it forward until there's no one left who needs to be saved. That's exactly how it works. Thank you, Commander, for everything. Thank yourself, Cole. You did the hard part. I just opened the door. Elena put the phone away, looked out at the ocean one more time. Somewhere in San Diego, Cross was sleeping peacefully for the first time in 18 years. The guilt he'd carried since 2006 finally laid to rest. Somewhere in Virginia, Torres was preparing her next training session, turning her pain into protection for others. Somewhere in Arizona, Hayes was completing her deployment, head high, voice strong, no longer afraid. And somewhere in Oklahoma, a family was about to learn that their daughter was going to make history. First female SEAL from the state. One of the first from anywhere. All because one woman had been patient enough to wait for the right moment. All because one operator had refused to accept that institutional failure was inevitable. All because speaking truth still mattered, even when everyone said it didn't. Elena slipped the knife into its sheath, turned back toward base. Tomorrow there would be more training, more candidates, more obstacles to overcome. But tonight, she stood on California sand and knew with absolute certainty that the mission was complete. Not because predators had been punished, not because careers had been restored, but because the next generation was ready. Cole and Torres and Hayes and 30 other women who'd learned that silence wasn't safety, that patience wasn't weakness, that being underestimated was advantage. The legacy would continue, from Cross to Elena to Cole to the hundreds who would follow. One warrior at a time. One life changed at a time. One truth spoken at a time. Until the day came when no woman in uniform would ever have to make the choice Elena had made at 20. Quit or endure. Because the system itself would protect them. Because justice would come swiftly instead of after decades. Because real warriors had built something that lasted beyond themselves. Aini walked back toward the lights of Coronado, Cross's knife at her hip, the weight of history behind her, the promise of future ahead. 18 years of predation had ended in 5.2 seconds. But the transformation that followed would echo forever. Swift, silent, certain. That's what Tier 1 meant. Not rank, not missions, not the number of enemies neutralized. It meant finishing what others started, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, ensuring that silence never meant weakness again. Commander Elena Ghost Vargas had done all three. And somewhere in a Pentagon office, a retired Master Chief smiled as he read the latest report. 8 more bases implementing new protocols, 23 victims reinstated across the service, the system changing faster than anyone had projected. He picked up his phone, typed a message to his student. The 43 years were worth it. All of them. Because of what you built. Keep going. The legacy is just beginning. Elena read the message as she walked through the base gate. Smiled. Typed back 2 words. Already am. Then she squared her shoulders and walked toward tomorrow. Because real warriors never stopped fighting. They just found new battles worth winning. And Elena Vargas had plenty of battles left.